Shalom Israel. First home, we give all praises, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh by Shem Shai by Shem Kadash. The ones the apostles and elders of Millstone teach us this truth. Peace and blessing to like the Israel and Shalom. Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Father in ancient Hebrew. Ba Shem means the name, and Yahweh Shai is the name of the only Son. Back on the lesson, and today going to go into these uproars and these riots and protests that you are seeing happening across the whole world, which is also a major end-time prophecy and an end-time sign showing you that this devil's kingdom is coming to an end and that this place is about to be destroyed. Because once your own people is fighting amongst each other and you can't control them as like you used to, just goes to show that you're losing your power. And just goes to show, once again, this devil's rulership is coming to an end. But just going to skim through a few articles, get a few scriptures that came to mind, and Lord willing, to be able to find lessons. Get into it. It says tens of thousands march for freedom in Australian cities. So you see across all these different nations, they're starting to implement the green pass to where you need to, show verification. It's like a verification that you have taken the juice, and that you have tested negative, on the test, to basically travel, to go on planes, and to go inside certain businesses, and to be able to leave your house after lockdowns. These type of things that they are implementing and that you see happening everywhere. But let's read a little bit down. It said protesters thronged the streets of Australian cities on Saturday, demanding an end to what they called the tyranny and oppression of lockdowns, juice mandates, and the proposed expansion of the government's pandemic powers. And Melbourne Sky News reporter Sophia Ellsworth described tens of thousands of people streaming through the streets. The march came after a week of smaller protests aimed at Victoria Premier Dan Andrews' controversial pandemic bill, which, if approved by the state's legislature, would allow Andrews and Health Minister Martin Foley to declare an indefinite state of emergency and issue public health orders by decree, including any order that the minister believes is reasonably necessary to protect public health. So, of course, they're going to use the name, of so-called safety to implement and to, basically tighten the rules and to implement more restrictions. These devils are tightening their grip, pursuing like the Revelation chapter 12, verse 12, how they're going to come down with great wrath, which you are seeing now. So tens of thousands of people keep streaming through the streets. Many I've spoken to are concerned about the state government premier juice mandates, the pandemic bill, and future holds for their kids. So you see protests, and you're even seeing riots coming from this. Pretty sure this is the biggest FU in Australia's history. So hey, there you go. Let's get two more. Just gonna skim through them. What did you say here? The 19 protests continue to rock first country in Western Europe to reimpose partial lockdown. Which second out of 15 and 17 goes into a man's desire to go into a city and shall not be able. So pretty soon, this place can go back to lockdowns. They're gonna shut this place down. And you won't be able to leave your state, your city. You won't be able to travel and, go on planes without having verification that you've taken the juice, that you basically, tested negative towards the 19. To be able to travel and then start holding checkpoints, So you got to show proof of verification that you've taken the juice to be able to leave your city, your state, and to even go inside certain stores. So now you're starting to see people rioting and protesting over this, man. So once again, it goes to show that these devil's plans are not just going to go as smoothly as they thought. But it says protests against renewed 19 restrictions turned violent in The Hague. The unrest comes a day after several demonstrators in another Dutch city, Rotterdam, were injured amid police gunfire. So skip that. It says a video shared on social media shows protesters lighting firecrackers that sparked multiple fires, causing the skies in the city to glow in eerie red. And there you go. You see, and this is a one of the end time prophecies also. Uproars of people in the world, distress of nations with perplexity. These are end time signs, man. It's just showing you that we're nearing the end of this devil's kingdom, and then guess what? Our kingdom, is pretty close, man. So this, just goes to show that we're moving or taking, bigger steps, towards the kingdom, So all this is a part of prophecy, which was skimmed a little bit to these. So watch thousands protest in Europe against the 19 passes, which I'll come back to these, get the few scripts that I got. But the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 15, verse 16 through 17. Wait for his refresh. It says, "For there should be sedition among men, invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." So they're not regarding their kings nor princes, so the people in power. They're just doing whatever they want. You see them rioting, protesting. The mandates that are being implemented, the restrictions, make it where you can't leave your home, you can't go outside certain businesses, and, travel. That's verse 17. "A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able." So them shutting this place in lockdown, martial law. There you go. Let's start holding checkpoints to where you need to show proof of verification that you've taken the juice and that you've been tested. So it says, book of 2 Timothy, chapter 3, verse 1, says, "This know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come." So they don't make these, purge movies for nothing. With certain cartoons, people are fighting each other, rioting, protesting, They don't make these movies for nothing, man. Let's get a book of Jeremiah, chapter 8, verse 7. It says, "Alas, for the day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the times of Jacob's trouble." As you know, Jacob got his name changed to Israel. So it's also been talking about Israel as a whole, but specifically 2/3 of our people. But the 1/3 will also be tried, and tested. But he shall be saved out of it. So Yahweh Shemashai will take care of and protect his elect, man, as multiple scriptures go into. So it's going to be, the trial of our faith, where we'll be, put to the ringer, man. We're going to be tried and tested. We're going to be, as the scripture says, for the gold is tried in the fire of adversity, roughly paraphrasing. So we're going to go through these trials and these tribulations. Lord is going to, try us, man. Our faith will be tested. And you'll see a lot of, Israelites cracking under that pressure. But the book of Isaiah, chapter 10, verse 1 says, "Woe to him that decree unrighteous decrees," which you are seeing in multiple articles, where you can't, travel, you can't go outside planes, you can't, go outside past curfew in certain places. But it says, "Watch thousands protests in Europe against the 19 passes." It says, "Sporadic clashes broke out at massive Saturday demonstrations in major European cities. Thousands of people took to the streets of Vienna, Paris, and Rome to express their discontent with the 19 restrictions." Isaiah 10:1. Wanted them to decree unrighteous decrees. The Austrian capital Vienna on Saturday saw the largest protest turnout since the start of the 19 pandemic. A total of 38,000 people took to the city streets to join a dozen demonstrations protesting the government's measures. Look at that. Once again, this goes to show that, hey, this place is through, man. If you can't see it, then you're blinded, man. You're seeing tons of end-time prophecy, seeing being built up and, playing out before our very eyes, and these end-time signs that Yahweh is showing us the times that we were in. Lockdown protest described as an orgy of violence. It says Rotterdam Mayor Ahmed Abataleb has described an anti-lockdown protest in its city as an orgy of violence. The Dutch demonstration devolved into a violent riot that saw police open fire on protesters. You see that right there, man. Uproars of people in the world. Come on. Abataleb described the events of Friday night as an orgy of violence after protesters packed Rotterdam Central, closing shopping street to voice their opposition to an ongoing partial lockdown, a ban on New Year's Eve fireworks displays, and the possibility of a two-tiered system of freedom in the Netherlands, which I made a lesson going into that a while back. A two-tiered system, making to where one people, can do basically whatever they want. They have all the freedom that they could ask for, but at a price, which is going to be, that juice, and pretty soon the MOTB, presuming back to Revelation 13:16. But now, on the other hand, those that want to obey and follow this devil's agenda and take the juice, well, guess what? You're going to be an outcast. You're going to be criminalized, demonized. I mean, multiple scriptures go into it, man. How we're going to be hated for Yahweh's namesake, Let's continue on with the scriptures, and I'll close up. The book of 2 Ezra, chapter 9, verse 3 through 5 says, "Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world," are those not uproars? Are those not riots? Are you not seeing protests taking place all over the world? Those were multiple locations that I just went into, man. Verse 4, "Then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning." So, hey, this was, prophesied, man. Verse 5, "For like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest." So showing you this devil's kingdom is coming to an end. This place is through, man. And Yahweh is showing us of the times that we're in. By the way, these signs and these prophecies, man. So y'all that want to continue to not take heed to these warnings that Yahweh is giving you through his men, which are the prophets today, specifically the camp of GMS and the few brothers, that follow the same doctrine. Y'all want to continue to take this for a joke. Well, guess what? You're gonna get caught along with the judgment to come. But Luke chapter 21, verse 25 through 28, it says, "And there should be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars." Recently the lunar eclipse, which hasn't been that long of a lunar eclipse in over 580 years, in which when you reduce that to in the calculator, it goes on to 1,444, 144,000, representing the elect. So just showing you that this place is due. "And there should be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity." Let's get distress, which, well, let me highlight it, but you know what it means. It's the earth distress of nations with perplexity. You seen them rioting, protesting, and as one of the articles went into, cops even had to shoot at them, man. "The sea and the waves roaring." Verse 26, "And men's hearts failing for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken." So these people are going to be afraid and shook when they see Yahweh shall return with the multitude of heavens, which would be, the angels in those chariots. And you see this prophecy playing out also. These people are going to be clueless and afraid on what's going on and, what's happening. Verse 27, "And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory." And once again, that cloud is talking about is going to a chariot, not a literal white puffy cloud, full of water. It's not what it's going to. It's going to a chariot, a so-called UFO today. On to verse 28, it says, "And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption, not our salvation, is nearer than we believed," man. We're almost home, man. This place is about to go. But let's close out with these last two scriptures I got. And Lord wants to find lesson. It says, "And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians." As you know, America is spiritually Sodom and Egypt. So America is modern day Egypt. So it's going to, Esau against Esau, man. So I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. And they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. Once again, with these riots, these protests, these fights that are breaking out, there's a big division amongst the people. Those that support the Jews and those that doesn't, So a lot of people are going to be looked upon as outcasts, be criminalized and demonized, looked upon as different. This is what's coming, man. And you're starting to see this now. Book of Matthew, chapter 12, verse 26. Once again, this is a terrible sign for a kingdom, a nation, when your own people is fighting amongst each other, and when your whole kingdom is divided. It goes to show that you're losing your power. And if Satan cast out Satan, Esau, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand? His kingdom is through. But, pretty much hit the point of the lesson. Don't want to drag this out too long. But as you see, tons of riots, protests, upwards of the people in the world taking place, literally everywhere, as said in the scriptures, man. So this is all part of prophecy. And once again, it just goes to show that this devil's kingdom is coming to an end. And Yahweh has shown us the times that we're in by the way of these signs and these prophecies, man. So take heed and, remain faithful, especially, those of us that are in this truth. I mean, we're almost at that finish line, man. We have to continue to, push through and endure, man. But, those of you that haven't, repented or new to this thing, study up and learn as much as you can, because, hey, we're almost out of here, man. The script says in the book of Romans chapter 13 verse 11, wake for knowledge of salvation nearer than we believed. So hey, wake up and repent, man, for those of you that you haven't. But gonna close out. Lord wants to edifying lesson. I want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh Shem Shai, Bashem Kakadash, double honor to the apostles and elders great millstone for teaching us his truth. Peace and blessing to all like Israel, and shalom. See you next one.